students. We are going to take noun phrases, and my name is Mr. Chike, J.O. We start with definition of a noun phrase. What's a noun phrase? A noun phrase is a group of words. A group of words in the sense that it's not a sentence. It's a group of words. It does not make complete meaning, therefore cannot be a sentence. A noun phrase is a group of words with a noun or a pronoun as a head word. What we mean by a head word is that it must contain a noun. A noun phrase must contain a noun or a noun equivalent. That means a word that is a noun must be within the noun phrase. What is a phrase? A phrase has no finite verb in it. It does not have a finite verb, and I believe that you know what a finite verb is. A phrase cannot have complete meaning. You cannot get to someone and say, two jovial friends. It doesn't make sense to the person. You cannot get to someone and say, the old man. It doesn't really make sense. Many dirty books does not make sense. So these are some examples of a noun phrase. We go down to structure of a noun phrase. By structure we mean the things that make up a noun phrase. When you are building, you need some things to put in place before it becomes a real building. The structure of a noun phrase can be any of these. Noun phrase can start with a noun alone. A noun phrase can start with a noun alone or a pronoun. Since we say that a noun is the name of any person, animal, place, or thing, or a noun equivalent, remember? A noun equivalent. Therefore, a pronoun is a word that you use instead of a noun. The two go hand in hand. A noun alone, example of a noun alone can be man, oranges, and so on. A noun phrase can as well start with a determiner. And what we mean by determiner is any of these. A, and, the, plus a noun. For example, the man, determiner plus noun. An orange, determiner plus noun. Number 3. A noun phrase can start with a numeral plus noun. For example, 2 students. 2 is number, student is a noun. 1 of the houses. 1 preposition plus noun phrase. Number 4. A noun phrase can start with a possessive. Example, my is a possessive from a possessive. Example, my coming late. My is possessive, coming is gerundive, late is another part of adjective that can take that if you take it together, you get your noun phrase. The main thing there is that we have a possessive starting that. Another group of a noun phrase can start with your sister's car. Your is a possessive starting this noun phrase. As time goes on, we'll make use of this in sentences. Number 5, we have quantifier plus noun. What do we mean by quantifiers? They are words that usually go with nouns. For example, some women, a lot of water, few birds. These are some noun phrases that when you complete them by adding a final verb to it, you have a complete sentence. But since we are talking about phrases, it doesn't make sense. It's still a fraction of a sentence. Number 6, we have gerundive. Gerundive are verbs that have ing. Most students misunderstand this. They mistake it for a verb. But when it's a gerundive, it does not have auxiliary verb to make it a complete verb, to make it main verb. Therefore, we have sweeping early as a noun phrase. We have taking photographs as a noun phrase. We as well have making decision as a noun phrase. Number 7, infinitive. Infinitives are words that start with to plus verb. We have to sweep early. That's a noun phrase. We also have to take a bus as another noun phrase. Some students misunderstand this and they overlook to and look at sweep and call it a verb. In this case, to sweep make up a noun phrase and not a verb. We move down to functions of noun phrase. We have 3 functions of noun phrase as stated on the board here. A noun phrase can function as, number 1, a subject of the verb. Take note, a subject of the verb and not a subject of the sentence. Most students will take it as subject of the sentence, but you should take note that it is a subject of the verb, because verb is the action word in every sentence. Example 1, the man cooked rice. The man cooked rice. What we have there as a noun phrase is the man. Since we have already discussed that a noun phrase can start with a determiner plus noun, the man. Therefore, we make a complete sentence here by having the man cooked rice. The man is a noun phrase. And what is the function? Subject of the verb cooked. Cook is the main verb. Example 2, under subject of the verb, we have sweeping early is the best option. If you take us back to where we have gerundive, number 6, we said that gerundive can start a noun phrase. You quickly make a complete sentence here. You have sweeping early is the best option. Therefore, our noun phrase is sweeping early. Let me take you a little further to the kind of question that you ask to get your noun phrase. We have, when you want to test for noun phrase, you ask the question, what or who? What or who will quickly give you an answer as a noun phrase. We will go back to this. We have the man cooked rice. You quickly ask the question, who cooked rice? Your answer comes up immediately, the man. Therefore, you are correct when you say that the man is a noun phrase. Also, in number 2, we have sweeping early is the best option. Quickly ask your question, your test question. What is the best option? Your answer comes up, sweeping early. Therefore, you are correct when you say that sweeping early is the best. When you say that sweeping early is your noun phrase. Therefore, we'll go to number 2. Function of the noun phrase. A noun phrase can function as an object of the verb. Remember, not object of the sentence. We take example 1. We saw several cars outside the school. We saw several cars outside the school. But let's have our test again. We saw what? What did you see? If I may ask, what did you see? Your answer will go several cars outside the school. Therefore, you are correct by saying that several cars outside the school is a noun phrase. Remember that we said that a noun phrase will surely, some noun phrases start with quantifiers. We'll take you back to our structure where we have quantifier plus noun. A lot of, few, some, and several is part of the quantifiers. Therefore, we can start a noun phrase. Example 2, example II under number 2. We have The boy was told to take a bus. The boy was told to take a bus. If you test again to know if it's actually a noun phrase, we ask the question, the boy was told what? What was the boy told? Our response will surely be to take a bus. Therefore, to take a bus is a noun phrase. Remember that somewhere here, in number 7, we said that an infinitive can start a noun phrase. To sweep, to take. Therefore, this example is correct for a noun phrase. And the function is object of the verb was told. Pay attention here. Was told is a verb. Unlike where we have saw in the example I, object of the verb saw, single verb. Here we have two verbs that make up the main verb. We have the auxiliary verb and the main verb. Auxiliary was told. Some students make the mistake of saying, when you ask them what is the function of this noun phrase, they will tell you is the object of the verb told. Some will say is the object of the verb was. Not remembering that was told as it is here, make up your main verb. Therefore, remember to make sure that you get all the verb in a main verb in a sentence together, no matter how many they are. Some verbs can be as many as 2, 3, 4 items. 2II. Example 2II, under functions of a noun phrase. The teacher punished 5 disobedient students. The teacher punished 5 disobedient students. If you test again for our noun phrase, the teacher punished who? Who did the teacher punish? We have our test, who, the use of who. We come about our answer, 5 disobedient students. Therefore, this is the object of the verb punished. That's the function. Remember, 5, starting this noun phrase, takes us back to our numerals. That we say that numerals can start a noun phrase. 1, 2, and so on and so forth. Number 3, under functions of a noun phrase. A noun phrase can function as a complement of a subject. What do you mean by complement of a subject? The doer, there are certain verbs that we use, and they are not action verbs. They are verbs to be. When they are verbs to be, you don't expect them to play any action. They only show the state of being. Therefore, when a noun phrase comes after them, they function as complements of the subject, that is the doer. We have an example I here. We are brilliant teachers. We are brilliant teachers. If you have a test again, we are what? What are we? Your answer comes up, brilliant teachers. Therefore, this is a complement of the verb we, because the verb that is here, the verb are, is a verb to be. It's not an action verb, it's a verb to be. Therefore, this brilliant teacher is actually telling you about the state of being of the doer of the action, of the doer in the sentence. Example II, they are students. They are students. Are is also, as we have seen there, a verb of state of being. And students is following. Student is a complement of the verb they, because students is actually talking about state of being of they, who they are, and not action. Number 4, function of the noun phrase is as a complement of another object. In some sentences, you have more than one object following each other in a sentence. We have, she told me. You remember that me is an object pronoun. Object pronoun. If you change it to subject, it will be I. But because of the position, in the object position, it continues to be me. She told me what? As questions come up. What did she tell you? To come. To come. She told me to come. Therefore, we have one object here and another object here. Therefore, this object is completing the first one. We have complement of me, complement of the object me as the answer. Another example for number 4, we made him chairman. We made him chairman. Him is an object or pronoun, as we have said before, just as me. And we have another object, a noun. Remember that we said that a noun phrase can start with a noun alone. A noun phrase can start with a noun alone. Chairman is a noun on itself. There is no article following it, but you should know that it's also a noun phrase, as it is here. This is an object, and this is another object position of another noun phrase. Therefore, we have complement of, this one is complementing him. We made him what? Gives you the answer. We made him chairman. What did you make him? Chairman. This is complement of the object, him. Last is number 5, where we have a noun phrase functioning as a complement of the preposition. Complement of a preposition. We have, she was praised for her good job. She was praised. This is our verb, main verb, but there's a preposition before this noun phrase. Our noun phrase here is her good job. Remember that we said that a noun phrase can start with a possessive. A noun phrase can start with a possessive. Here, number 4. So her good job there is starting with a possessive. Here we have my, we have your here, and we have her here. This is the beginning of the noun phrase. She was praised for. If you ask your question here, you have for what? She was praised for what? That gives you the answer to your noun phrase here. So she was praised for her good job. For her good job is a noun phrase functioning as a complement of the preposition for. This is the very nearest item before the noun phrase. Complement of the completing. Complement means to complete. So it's completing. You can't just say she was praised for and stop there. The person listening to you, the listener will ask you, she was praised for what? So we have to pay attention to noun phrases, as I have stated down on the board here, starting with the definition, moving down to structure of a noun phrase, the building. How do you build up a noun phrase? We move down to functions of a noun phrase, picking them bit by bit in their various forms, and then trying to make a test, conduct a test to know whether we actually are correct with our noun phrases. I think on this note, we have come to the end of this class on noun phrases. If you have any question, I'll be glad to have them on the comment box. And thank you.